So we all know that the X100V is phenomenal for photography. From the film simulations, to the form factor, to the image quality, to the size, the lens. It's all just kind of a complete package, perfect for street photography, portraits, landscape. But this camera also has a video mode. Is this camera something you can really use for professional video? In this video, we're going to kind of dive into some of the more advanced video features that the camera has and see if it has what it takes to produce amazing video. Also, everything in this video, including this segment right here, is shot with the X100V. All right, let's go. One of the most important features of a hybrid camera is how fast it is to go from photo to video and back to photo. To get to video mode, you have to press the drive button, then the up button, and that puts you in video mode. To get back to photo mode, you press the drive button, then the down button. I kind of wish they would allow us to just set a custom button on the camera to go into the video mode without having to do the two-button dance, but I mean, it's not that bad. At the end of the day, you get used to it, and it just takes literally a second and a half to go from photo to video and back to photo. This camera also shoots 120 frames per second, which is amazing. I use that mode all the time, and I use it so much that I've mapped the front button on my camera to quickly be able to get to it. So if I press that button, then I press up, I get 5x slow motion or 120 FPS. Then if I want to get back, I just press that button again and I press down. The one advantage of the 120 FPS is also that it crops in a little bit. It's a 1.29 crop. So it gives you a little bit of extra reach from your lens. One other plus for this camera's video features is that whatever video settings you set in your video mode, they get saved in your video mode. So when you go back to taking your photos, you no longer have to change back their shutter speed, your film simulation, all that stuff is baked into each mode, which is great because then all of your videos can have a certain look to them and all of your photos can have their own certain look to them, and you don't have to keep fiddling back and forth between the settings as you change modes. Also, the colors and the film simulation modes are amazing. If you're like me and you're like an amateur color grader at best, right? Then just having Eterna or having Classic Chrome applied onto your video will save you a ton of time in post and also ensure that your videos will look good, right? Because these are like tried and tested film simulations, colors that are baked into your footage. So it's not like they're really gonna mess it up. You know, you can kind of just feel confident and safe that what you're gonna get is gonna look great as long as your exposure is correct. The autofocus is also pretty decent. I mean, I'm shooting with it right now on eye autofocus, so if I'm moving in and out of focus, then it's the camera's fault, but it should be locked into my eye pretty well. So you can definitely rely on it to autofocus well. And if autofocus is not your jam, it has a really nice manual focus feature where it'll, it has focus peaking and all the other stuff that'll really help you nail your focus. Now, it's not all positive with this camera. There are definitely some drawbacks, but they're all, workaroundable. The first one is the battery life. So this camera has the upgraded Fujifilm battery, but it kind of sucks the juice out of this thing pretty quickly shooting a lot of video. With this camera, you're able to get about 45 minutes of continuous video. But one great thing with this camera is that you can power it externally. So you can buy an external power supply, and you can plug it into the USB-C of this camera, and you can run it continuously with that external battery source. So if you are doing an interview or something long, then you can just use that external power source instead of relying on the batteries. Now that brings me to point number 2, and that is the 10-minute recording time. Now, I understand this camera was not meant for video, but it would have been nice if they made it 15, 20, 30 minutes. This camera cannot shoot more than 10 minutes without turning off, after which you have to go back and press the record button, which I just did actually before I said this clip because 10 minutes had passed. Now, it's definitely something that you can get around. It's not the end of the world. This camera is not for recording long-form interviews or stuff like that. It's more for like this kind of YouTube short-form content, videos here and there about your life. For audio, it has a 2.5mm jack. You know, right now I'm using my Sennheiser lavalier mic attached to the camera, but that thing has a 3.5mm jack. So what I have to do is attach that end to a adapter that goes into that camera. So again, not the end of the world. You know, you can definitely just take that adapter with you everywhere, but it's just kind of annoying that you'd have to remember to bring it with you if you want to use it, instead of just relying on the fact that the camera accepts normal audio inputs. And the last thing is this camera does not have image stabilization, and it has a 35mm equivalent lens. So you're gonna get some shaky footage with this camera if you don't know how to properly stabilize yourself while you're shooting. There are some techniques you can use, like for example, tucking your elbows in while you're taking the video. That way, you know, it's more stabilized instead of having your arms up here and having it be a little more wobbly. But yeah, the fact that it doesn't have stabilization means that your footage is not going to be as stable as it would if you had stabilization, obviously. That being said, not a deal breaker. You can either use a tripod like I'm doing now, or if you're walking, just make sure you're not running with the camera and just be very still while you're shooting video. There are some other really advanced features that I really like. One of them being is the tally light. So it has a light in the front that lets you know when it's recording. So when that limit expires of 10 minutes, it'll turn off, letting you know that, hey, this thing is not recording anymore. Really helpful feature. I don't know why other cameras don't have tally lights in the front and the back as well. It also can shoot in F-Log, which is their super flat dynamic range profile that you can apply a LUT to after the fact and get all that dynamic range back. However, I don't really use this. I don't find a point in using that because it's 8-bit footage at the end of the day, and I'd rather have a film simulation baked in that looks great than having shot in F-Log and then me not knowing how to correctly balance everything at the end and get it all looking the same. I found that the 4K coming out of this thing is nice and small. The file sizes are not massive, and when it comes to pushing colors, you can push the colors a little bit, but I find that film simulation, they're just the way to go with this camera. It'll make your footage look great. So yeah, if you're a solo content creator, you can definitely rely on this thing for video, like I said. But if you're someone who wants to shoot, you know, Hollywood films or full feature-length documentaries or stuff like that, this camera is not for you. But then again, this camera was never for you anyway. This is a photography-first camera that happens to shoot video, but it does it very well. One thing I love about Fuji is they don't skimp out on their features, right? They try to jam-pack features into their camera bodies, and they're not afraid to be like, well, if you put this in this camera, then this other camera line is going to be cannibalized. And no, they just make their cameras the best they can possibly be at that time. And I really respect them for that, and I love them for that, and that's kind of why they're going to be my favorite camera company ever, because they don't hold back on features. They kind of give you all they got at the time, you know? And with this little guy is no exception. Not only can it shoot amazing photos, but it can also be used for video as well. You just kind of have to know what you're doing. If you have any questions about the video features, please let me know in the comments. Happy to answer any questions about this camera, about the video features, about how to use anything in it. I've had it for about a year now, and I have a lot of experience with the camera, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can about it, or about how to use it for video or photo or anything like that. In the meantime, I'm going to keep posting videos about Fujifilm, about cameras, about philosophy, about my life in general. Please, if that's your jam, subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching so far. Please subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Peace.